welcome to Horror Rewind. This is Kelly Florence.
And I'm Meg Hofdahl.
And in this fast-forward episode, we're going to be talking about The Handmaid's Tale Season 2.
Woohoo!
Does this deserve a woohoo?
I know, it's like so... We just watched the season's finale, and it was not so much woohoo, and it was more somber and serious. So I guess I'll have my serious face on.
I guess we don't have to be serious, but my God, this show, I love it so much. And I did read the novel in college, and I mean, this, obviously, that's the source material, but this is surpassing and taking a new direction, and we're living in the golden age of television. That's all I have to say.
We are. Tell me more about the novel, because I've never read it.
Yeah, so I haven't read the novel in a while, but it's definitely taken off. It's in this new direction now. It was basically the novel just sharing Offred's story, and there's no hope, you know. It doesn't feel like there's any hope, and it's very bleak, and it's a cautionary tale. And oh my gosh, things that are happening in the world right now, it feels a little scary. And did you see that article about that woman who was, it seems like, you know, The Handmaid's Tale for real? She's like talking about implementing like husbands being in charge of their wives or something.
Oh boy, there's always somebody like that crawling around. No, I didn't see that, but I have no problem picturing what that would be like. Yeah, I think there's shows that are of their time, and this is just a wonderfully well-timed show. I saw like the opposite, where the Kevin Connolly, the actor from Entourage, was on Today's Show the other day promoting his movie Gotti that nobody went to see, and that's apparently terrible. And whoever was interviewing him asked him, like, would there, you know, they were asking about Entourage, and would there be another one? And he's like, listen, Entourage made sense when it was out. It does not make sense anymore. No one wants to ever see that again. Like, he was just very honest about it, and he was like, that show made sense at the time that it came out, but it no longer is really the way the world works anymore. And I thought it was like really cool that he could see that, and it was just a great example of like some shows exist in their time and it makes sense then. And Handmaid's Tale, oh my gosh, I mean, I feel like it's saying so much about society right now, and it's just perfect timing.
Oh, I should mention, all of our fast-forward episodes are definitely not spoiler-free. You know, don't spoil yourself if you don't want to. So at the end of season 1, Offred and the rest of the handmaids are being told they need to stone Janine to death because Janine tried to steal her baby back, or she was about to kill herself and the baby. And the season ends with Offred being taken by some security, and we don't really know where she's going. Nick says, just go with them, trust me, or something. And so we think, oh, maybe she's escaping. And it feels like it ends on a bit of hope. But season 2 begins, and it's definitely not hopeful.
Yeah, and I think that's sort of apropos for the whole season, because I think there are so many moments throughout the season where there was hope for, like, a split second, and then it kind of, like, you know, something that comes to mind right away is even when we got to know a little bit more about Moira, and she's looking through the pictures later in the season, looking for proof if her girlfriend is dead, and there feels like there's this hope that she's not going to find the picture, and we get to know through flashbacks the girlfriend, and then of course we see the picture and that she's dead, and that's just sort of goes in line with the whole season where there's that hope, and then it's dashed, and that must be what it's like to live in Gilead.
It's so great because they're taking us through this emotional roller coaster as they're all being taken through it. First of all, some general reasons why I love this show. There's so many women. It's so well done. I realize that they're not living in this ideal situation, obviously, but overcoming it and fighting it and working together, hopefully, to take their power back and have a voice again. Like, this is what I'm holding on for. It's going to happen, right, Meg?
Yeah. You know, you mentioned the woman in real life who, you know, wants us to obey our husbands or whatever. And they have Serena, and obviously there are other women that were involved in it, which is always shocking. It's sort of like when you find out that women voted for Trump.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, okay, that's a thing that happens. And in this, they're showing there are women that are part of the construction of this dystopia. But to sort of go into the character of Serena, it's like she's realizing, oh, maybe this isn't so great. And now that she has a daughter and some skin in the game, it's like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have pushed for this, and maybe what I thought this was going to be, it's not turning out that way. And so it's nice to see not only the women that have been sort of clear thinking the whole time, but these other women who had these muddied ideas are like, oh, maybe I do want to work for better. What do you think? Does Serena want to work for better?
Oh God, I mean, she thinks she does, but what does better mean to her?
Mm-hmm.
So I want to talk about some characters and sort of their arcs throughout the season. Serena has to be one of the best characters on television right now because she's so complicated, and one moment you're fearful of her because she's not going to do what you want her to do, like we as the audience, and the next moment you're rooting for her and hoping that she does the right thing, and she doesn't always choose correctly. She makes mistakes, and isn't that what we want to see on television and in film and read in our novels?
I'm such a proponent of complicated women, as you know, and women that are unlikable at times, and I think we need more female characters that are like that. You know, we have June in this story to be our protagonist, and, you know, she mostly makes good decisions. But I love Serena. You know, it's sort of like people who hate Cersei Lannister on Game of Thrones. I love her, and I know that sounds crazy, but it's because she has reasons behind why she does things, and Serena has reasons behind why she does things, and she's much more complicated than Cersei, even because she's sort of bouncing between good and evil, and it's just such a fully fleshed out character. And I sometimes I think about, I had this friend way back when Chuck was on, and I never watched Chuck, but she's Yvonne, and I don't know how to pronounce her last name, the actress that plays Serena. She was on that show, and he had a crush on her, and he's like, oh, I love her so much, and she's so great in that show. And I'm like, oh, whatever. Like, she's so whatever, and she can't even act, and whatever. And then I saw her in Dexter, and I was like, oh, okay, I guess she's not so bad. And now I'm seeing her in this, and I'm like, she's amazing. And so I think back, you know, sometimes we think we know, and she's actually an incredible actress. So, yeah, I just love that she's complicated and that we don't always know. I mean, in the season's finale, this one that just came out today, I thought she was going to do stuff she didn't do, and I thought she wasn't going to do stuff she did, and it was just like this... She keeps us on our toes, and, like, that's really fun.
Her backstory is fascinating because she is the writer. She is the public speaker. She had this book published, and she was making all of these appearances and really fighting for this change of society and government. But now she's powerless and voiceless, and she's not even legally in Gilead allowed to read or write. And so one of my favorite episodes, it doesn't last very long, but after the birthing center gets blown up, when in the world would I be rooting for that? I'm rooting for that in this TV show, and Captain Waterford gets injured enough that he's away for a while. I wondered if he was going to be dead. Did you wonder?
Yeah, I mean, this is the kind of show that, you know, they have high stakes and they're not afraid to have things happen. So I definitely was like, oh my God, is he going to be dead? And, like, Joseph Fiennes is a pretty, like, popular actor, you know, with a lot of credits. And I thought, well, maybe he wants to move on career-wise too.
Yeah. But he's away, and Serena she's starting to write in his place and take on some of his duties. And she gets June to help her because she used to be an editor at a publisher, and these two women working together doing this forbidden stuff, I was like, this is the new girl power, and they're going to work together to change things.
Yeah, I was really excited. I hoped that Serena was coming over to the light side, and that she was going to be, you know, but again, it's like, as a viewer, you want her to do that, but also as a viewer, I love that she's complicated and she's in this gray area and that she's not black or white soul, so to speak. So I don't know. I was torn because I was kind of glad that she didn't all of a sudden just flip flop, but also I just want her to flip flop and be on our side.
I know. So she and June get in trouble, and he ends up whipping his wife. And she's in the bedroom and she's crying, but she's trying not to make an audible sound so that June doesn't know she's crying. And June is like, is there anything I can do? And she's like, no, go away. And she doesn't let her in. What I wanted to happen, I wanted her to go in and like wanted her to comfort her and hug each other. And they couldn't at that moment. And that was so powerful.
It was, and it was sort of like showing the stark reality of what's being taken away and what you take away when you don't allow women to be who they are and use their minds and connect with each other, which is what these men are doing, is making sure that women can't connect with each other and they're pitting them against each other. And it makes me think about, you know, obviously this is dystopian, but it is very telling of parts of the world. I mean, these things are still happening, and also in the past. And to think about all the great literature, art, and ideas and science and all that women weren't able to share because men were threatened, it makes me kind of sick to think of everything we missed out on, because there were some incredible minds out there, women that weren't able to share. And it makes you realize there are women who live in these kind of, you know, this is supposed to be an exaggerated, almost science fiction type of story, but is it really?
I know, it's not too far from reality. And we were at a wedding a couple of years ago, my family and I, and there are, even in our community, religions and groups that the women have to wear their ankle-length skirts, and they wear those handmade bonnets. Not the big white ones, but the little ones. Mm-hmm. They have to have their hair up and covered like that. And that's their reality, and they're not allowed to speak in church or wherever. And they're not allowed to do this and that. I mean, that's happening in our country. So, yeah, I don't think it's not that far from reality. How about that episode where they had to go to, where they went to Canada, and she was offered a book deal and she could go live in her days out in Hawaii, and she didn't take it.
I mean, now that's just insane. Hawaii? Yeah, I mean, and you wonder, was it all about the baby? Was that the only thing keeping her in Gilead? I mean, she certainly doesn't have a very good relationship with her husband, so I don't feel like it was love for him. I really don't think she feels an obeisance to him or anything like that. So that was fascinating, and it was fun to sort of see her. She got to sort of be a woman from Gilead in a non-Gilead place, and that was kind of fascinating, and how she was sort of treated. And, you know, how would you treat somebody like that if you saw somebody like that, you know, with the whole elevator scene. So yeah, that was kind of fun to see her out of her element and then get the chance, and she didn't take it.
I know, I love, that's why I love Serena, though. I cannot wait to see what she does next. Speaking of which, let's continue to talk about her, just sort of her through line. One of the big moments, she now has this daughter. Of course, I'm skipping a lot of plot, but she has this daughter, and this sounds like the men like, oh, I have a wife. If I put it in that perspective, I understand. Or I have a daughter. But Serena is starting to realize, okay, will my husband protect our daughter if she tries to read? Or is it so bad that we're trying to read? Maybe we should be allowed to read, to study the scripture or whatever it is. And she gets punished again in this finale for that. What is happening? Like, at what point? I mean, I realize that some of it's brainwashing and abusive relationships, and we can get trapped in these relationships, but at what point is enough enough?
And I think Serena, you know, she's no shrinking violet. Like, she's a strong woman, and she went up there, and all those women are like, oh, you shouldn't read in front of all those men, like, you're going to be in trouble. And she's like, it's going to be okay. And I mean, maybe part of it is that she's in denial and she doesn't realize how bad everything is. Although you'd think after everything she's gone through and seeing the two lovers being executed in front of her, she wouldn't be so bold. But she has that boldness that I think makes her endearing and is going to get her sort of in trouble, so to speak. It's what June has been sort of doing this whole time. And you can see this sort of odd sisterhood between the two of them. And I think I'm excited. I hope that we get to see more of that next season. But oh my God, there's so much to talk about. Like, let's talk about that couple that died.
So yes, so the next thing I think we should move on to is this new wife that the captain brings in. He brings in wives for all the guards as a quote unquote like gift because they're so great and valued, but really it's an FU to June, like from Serena, kind of, don't you think Serena had something to do with this? That Nick is getting taken away and he has a new wife and she's 15. This actress was great. She was adorable, but Nick didn't love her and she didn't really love Nick. She fell in love with another guard. Wasn't that the cutest?
That was so cute, and she felt like so bad because she felt like she was being a bad wife, and of course Nick doesn't care because he's in love with June, and there were so many great nuanced scenes. As a writer, I'm so inspired by, there's so much great spare dialogue, and like it's just written so well. But the dynamics between Eden and Nick and June during that time, and then yes, she falls in love with this guard, and she's not, she's trying so hard to be a wife, which at 15 I can't even imagine, and she doesn't really know anything about sex. She doesn't know really how to take care of a household, but she's trying so hard to make the house look nice for him, and she thinks that this is her role, and so many women before her have thought that that's what your worth is and that's what you're supposed to do. And like I said, it just kills me to think of all the wasted minds that have happened. But she thinks, okay, I'm gonna do my best, but she can't help it. She falls in love with this guard, and of course it doesn't end well.
This whole thing happened after June was out for a bit. She was staying at the old Boston Globe headquarters, and that whole thing was very fascinating. But to see, it's just this family, they're minding their own business. This is an honor to become, a guard's wife, and these parents sent her away willingly and even sent her to her death willingly, basically.
Yeah, I think that was really profound in the last episode where we find out that Eden's father called the police on her, because I think that was really the catalyst for what ends up happening between Serena and June and with the baby, was that it was clear that the men in this society, the way that things are going, is that they will end up hurting every single woman they come in contact with, including their daughters. And that's like really scary and sad.
Yes, it is. And just like look at the world and what's happening, and it doesn't matter who it is. No one is immune. Can I just mention something that I love, and this makes my romantic heart happy. Okay, Meg and I love a good romance that's subtle, a glance, a touch of a hand. We learned this from the X-Files. I mean, long before that, but the X-Files got us used to that. Nick and June last season, when they kind of held hands in the kitchen for a moment, and then when he finds out she's pregnant and he touches her belly and she's sitting at the table, Meg.
I know, and there's so many moments this season too where I'm just like, oh my gosh, yeah, illicit hand holding, secretive glances. I love it all, and there's this whole it's just oh my god, I love them so much, and I'm just constantly worried something bad's gonna happen. I'm please don't let Nick die. I just feel like he's gonna die, Kelly.
I know. I mean, how can this show end well? But I freaking love them. Okay, I just have to say, I love them secretly holding hands and looking at each other, but I didn't mind when he took her up against a wall either.
No, and there was good sex scenes, yeah, this season. Oh, I'm thinking about it right now. And then last season there were too.
They're so hot.
They're so hot. Yeah, so no complaints there. And yeah, and I mentioned earlier, I like that when he went to Canada, he talked to her husband. He didn't necessarily admit that it was his baby, but he did tell her husband that she was okay. And then when he came home, he told her the truth that her husband was still alive. And I was like, okay, he is a good-hearted man, because he could have just been like, I didn't see your husband, like, I'm your man now. But he believed in their relationship enough and loves her enough that he was going to tell her that. And I thought that was, you know, while Serena is, like, pinging between bad and good, like, Nick is all good.
He is. I love him so much. And he's trying to do the right thing with Eden and his 15-year-old wife. And he was trying to not be mean to her or anything. I mean, it's not her fault that she was the way she was, but oh my God, I love them so much. And their relationship. Ugh.
That was not a hot sex scene between Eden and Nick.
Ooh, that was the opposite. Oh my God, the whole.
Yeah. I mean, people do that, I guess. People who I assume don't listen to this podcast.
I mean, I should clarify what we're talking about. There was like a sheet with a hole in it, and like she was covered except for that. Like, what?
I guess that's a thing.
Oh my goodness. It was so perfect though, because it's so awkward, and it makes it like it is the least sexy thing. And then picture Nick and June up against a wall in the Boston Globe headquarters.
There couldn't be anything further from a hole in a sheet.
Meg's Jack Russell is sitting on her lap, and he's looking at us like we're nuts.
You horny girls, he's saying.
Okay, I also want to talk about the character of Emily. Her story, from last season, she ran over a guard with a car. Like, she stole that car and she killed a man. Like, she's, not gonna just sit idly by. We got to see her backstory. She was a professor. She's smart. Her dean or department head was like, you need to not teach anymore because somebody knows that you're a lesbian. And it was that student who you wouldn't think, she was trying to stand up for this female student, and she outed her.
Yeah, and then there's that, and then the dean was gay, right?
Yeah.
And then he gets hanged, right in front of everybody, and she's like, oh shit, this is getting real. So that was a really cool sort of insight into her backstory, and we got to see her son and her wife, too, and yeah, she's hardcore. I mean, she had the FGM done to her. She's been through a lot. She goes to the colonies this season, which was really fascinating to see.
So I was, in the novel, The Handmaid's Tale, there's things alluded to, but nothing is really ever explained, which is kind of cool, because it's like, I don't need 3 chapters telling me exactly how the government works. Like, it's more fun to not know, and then things get revealed as they go. The colonies are referred to, but we never really saw them or knew what they were, and we still really don't know. They're radioactive for some reason. We don't know exactly why. There's some fan theories, and maybe even, I don't know, the writers or showrunners have said, but these women, they're called unwomen, same as the episode title that this is revealed in. They're forced to work out there until they die. They're not even giving them masks. Everyone else is wearing, like, masks. And Alexis Bledel is out there just trying to do her best. Oh, and Janine comes.
Yeah, Janine's there. Marissa Tomei is there. Yeah. So that was fun. But yeah, it's fascinating. And you're right. I think one of the best things about it is it's never explained what they're really doing out there. And it sort of leaves you, again, it's sort of creating this feeling of living in Gilead. It's like you get your hopes up and then they're dashed. And you don't know what's happening in the colonies. And that's exactly what they're feeling on a very minute level. But yeah, I love leaving stuff to the imagination.
So many handmaids died or got punished or whatever happened after that bombing that they end up bringing some of these unwomen back to be handmaids again. Jillian and Emily being, not Jillian, Janine and Emily being 2 of them. And Emily is back, and her first guy is a dud. I think he dies during sex, and she gets to, like, kick him a couple times, which is cool.
Yeah, right in the penis. So that was good. Yeah, he's a dud. He literally had sex. He literally died the first.
And then she gets put with Bradley Whitford, which he is an actor who can play a bad guy or a good guy. Did you ever watch The West Wing?
No.
Almost inaudibly. Meg is disgusted by that show. No, I'm just kidding. She didn't watch it. I started to watch it because it's on the top 5 TV shows of all time, according to some critic, and I was like, I don't know. I'm almost done with it.
Oh. You look like you don't care all that much.
I should have said no, and also inaudibly, because, you know, it's fine. I just don't love it.
Speaking of duds, yeah.
I mean, whatever. Bradley Whitford can play a good guy or a bad guy, and you don't know if he's a good guy or a bad guy.
Like, Get Out is a great example of him just being sort of, like, friendly, but he kind of has this snarkiness to him, and you don't really know, and of course that all ends up bad, and so, yeah, he's a great actor to be in this role, because you really don't know, like, when he has that conversation with her at the dinner table, you're wondering, are you going to be good? Like, and he mentions her FGM, and he mentions that she's lesbian, and you don't know if he's being an asshole or what.
I mean, we know that this house is definitely not up to par. I think his Martha has an eye missing, and she swears at him. His wife has gone over the cliff, and she's not coming back, like, psychologically wise. And then it's time for their first ceremony, which we just got to see in this finale, spoiler alert, and he doesn't follow through, but he tells Aunt Lydia that they did, and we're like, okay, that's good, but now what's going to happen?
Yeah, I mean, you're like, okay, so maybe he's a good guy, but he definitely, again, they did a great job of him not being like, I'm on your side and like I'm here to save the day. It was very much like we have to kind of go along with Emily figuring out like, is this guy okay? Is he gonna be nice, or is he gonna just like grab her and attack her? I don't know. And also like some subtle things like where they had art all over the house and playing music and things like that you know are not normal over in the Waterford household. So that was kind of interesting. Those are like little clues maybe that he's different and he isn't in the same mindset. And then he ends up really helping in the end.
You know, speaking of that, she walks into the house and there are books everywhere. And I think in the Waterford's house, the books are only in Captain Waterford's study or whatever, and they're not out for public consumption. And then that's when we get the hint. Bradley Whitford, I can't think of his character name, it doesn't matter. He was like, she kind of catches her looking at a book, and he's like, the first offense of caught reading is a cut off finger, and that ends up happening to Serena in the very next episode.
I'm curious to see, I know this is like, you know, I shouldn't be worried about it, but I'm curious to see how they're going to deal with that next season. I was like, does this mean Serena's going to end up dying because they don't want to spend time showing her with a cut off pinky? Like, I feel like, is she going to wear a glove all the time? Like, they're going to have to do something because, you know, those are the kind of things stick in my head. Like, does this mean she's marked for death? Because it's too much to show her pinky, but...
They literally sew Janine's eye shut every episode.
That's true. That's true. They literally sew that actress's eye shut. But yeah, you're right. I shouldn't be worried about it. Yeah, she gets her pinky cut off for reading, which, as a writer and an avid reader, that's probably the first thing that would happen to me in this world. I can't even imagine. And remember when she goes to Canada, they give her a piece of paper with the pictures of what she's going to be doing because she's not allowed to read words.
Like, this makes me livid and nuts. Like, to think that, I mean, this did happen, and maybe it's still, it is still happening some places. Women aren't allowed to, women are just starting to drive in some countries.
Mm-hmm. You know, I'm thinking about what I love about this show, and this is true horror. Like, this is horror. Getting your finger cut off for reading words. I mean, like, that is... I could argue that this is more of a horror show than anything.
Finishing up on the Alexis Bledel, Emily storyline, she ends up stabbing Aunt Lydia. And, you know, speaking of Aunt Lydia, that's another character where I feel like she can go either way because... sometimes she is very helpful. Like, she's standing up for June and saying, oh, she should be in the house because she can breastfeed. And let Janine see this dying baby. Maybe it's the last chance. And the baby comes back because her mother's holding her. Like, oh, my God. I mean, I don't know if that's why, but maybe it's why. But Aunt Lydia gets stabbed. I don't think she's dead. She was pushed down the stairs and kicked a few times, too, which felt pretty good. Aunt Lydia is not a good guy by any definition of that term, but she's also nuanced. She is
nuanced, and you know, we have to remember she's she's being forced into this role as well. And it's like, at what point can we start judging her? Because, yeah, I mean, you think, oh my God, she's not nice. She's taking people's eyes. She's burning people. And maybe she's weaker than someone like June. But at the same note, you know, I hope next season, I would love to see a backstory. She mentioned, I think June asked her, she said, have you ever been a godmother before? And then right before she leaves the room, I have chills thinking about it. She's like, yeah, my sister's child, and it died. But she shared just this tiny little bit about herself, that she has a sister. And it's just like, I would just love to see. I really hope we get to see a backstory. She's fascinating. And yeah, she's definitely swings more on the bad side even more than Serena. But I feel like maybe there's a human being in there.
There has to be. Mm-hmm. My God, give me an Aunt Lydia prequel. Right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Wouldn't that be amazing? I want to see, I feel like she's tougher than we might think, and I think she has a really fascinating story to tell.
So great. This show just keeps blowing my mind. Before I get into the finale, I want to talk about the episode where June is alone in this mansion, and you think she's going to get away because she finds this car, but she can't get through the garage door, and she ends up having to give birth alone in this empty house. What were your feelings during that episode?
Just a complete roller coaster, up and down, all over the place. You're smiling because she's like, first she gets to see her daughter, who this whole 2 seasons we've been waiting for her to actually have contact with her daughter, and her daughter's reaction is less than great, you know, and her daughter's like, why did you abandon me? And I mean, as a mother and as a human being, that hurts. And then Nick gets thrown into a van and she's by herself, and then there's a car and there's hope, and you're like, oh my gosh. And then, you know, you want her in great cinematic form to just crash through the garage door, but it doesn't work that way.
I thought that was brilliant, because really all of these things that happen in movies, especially action movies, and not to discredit them, but is that true? Could that happen? And no, she can't crash through, and she has to freaking go in and give birth alone. Oh, and she doesn't think she will be able to survive, so she's trying to draw attention to herself by shooting the rifle in the air. Like, wow.
When she shot that, I was just like, I was by myself. I was just yelling, no! Like, don't do it. Like, just, you can do this. You're gonna be okay. She wakes up in this big puddle of blood. She's like, I need help. And she's putting her daughter before herself. She's like, I got it. This baby needs to live. And that's so wonderful. But it's like, oh my God, don't draw attention. You can get away. It was very frustrating. And it got to, like, I feel like I felt every single emotion during that episode.
Absolutely. It was so well done. When she's holding that shotgun and the Waterfords are downstairs arguing, and I think he hits Serena, or at least like pushes her up against a wall or something. The thing I know about shotguns is that was not a sniper rifle, and she wouldn't have hit him even if she had shot. I really wanted her to shoot him, but I knew it wasn't going to work out. But my God,
yeah, that was a great scene where we get to sort of be voyeurs in Serena and Fred's marriage. And yeah, I was like, please just shoot. Please kill him. I just want to see him dead.
I hope to God that we get some satisfactory torture or penis cutting off, something.
I was like thinking like about his balls being crushed or something. Like, it needs to be something really extreme, or we could just rape him with something. And by the way, the rapes in this show are so important, and this show does not shy away from brutality, and it shows you, and it's so hard to watch. Like, the scene, just going back to the scene where they decide, and this is Serena, I think, really sort of wielding her power. Yeah, she's like, oh no, we're gonna do it this way, which is completely unnecessary. You don't need to try to induce labor with that. And they rape her while she's 9 months pregnant, and they show it. And what's worse is that Serena's holding her down, and she's begging Serena. And this show is just like, here, this is life. This is life here. We're not gonna depict a rape by like showing shadows or something. I mean, they're like, this is the reality of what just happened, and they show her laying there afterward and her sort of like having to compute what just happened to her, and I just have chills thinking about what she's going through, and I'm just thankful that they're depicting it in the brutality in which it deserves.
True. And I hope Fred gets his comeuppance, because even though, yeah, Serena has not done wonderful things, I still blame Fred.
Yeah, I mean, this is the way the society's built now. He is in charge. And yeah, Serena, I think, and we'll talk about the choice she ultimately makes in the season finale, but I think Serena will hopefully get the chance to make amends for what she's done. And I think she's smart enough and has a good enough head on her shoulders that she can change the course of what she's doing. Fred is a small man who was puffed up bigger by this whole change of the world, and he's the type of person that we all need to look out for in our own world.
That should be on a t-shirt. I agree. Okay, this finale, I felt so many things. I may have given Fred the finger more than once. And we talked about some of the things in the finale, but the main thing is the inciting incident. June has the baby. She's going to breastfeed. Martha is there. Nick holds the baby for the first time. And Martha, I think, realizes that he's the father. Maybe she didn't know before this. Maybe she did, but it's all like a light bulb went off in her head. And when they show her through the door, I'm like, oh, please don't turn them in.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't worry that she was going to turn them in. I felt like a warmness, a warmth from her. So I was like, I think it's going to be okay. I was just worried something terrible is going to happen, because it's that kind of show where you're like, everything seems really nice right now. When's the shoe going to drop?
Thankfully, things moved in that direction. I mean, I guess we don't even know how this is all going to turn out, but Martha says, I can get you and the baby out. Let's go. June grabs her stuff, has the baby, and she's on her way out. Serena's in the garden, where it's the only place she can escape to and feel like she's in control. And she asked to hold the baby to say goodbye. I did not think she was going to give that baby back to June.
Basically, what's happened in this episode is that Serena is realizing, like we mentioned before, that, they will not be able to protect Nicole from the men in the society, and that if she's caught reading, if she's caught kissing a boy she's not supposed to be kissing, whatever, that she could die or be harmed and maimed. And so Serena does what a true mother does, which is put her child before herself. And that was really cool to watch, but also terrifying, because I didn't trust her and I felt like she was going to steal the baby away from June. But she knows that this is Nicole's only chance to live a life of true love and happiness. And she goes, you know what? Instead of like me wanting to have this child for myself and be selfish, I'm going to let her go. And that's the hardest thing a mother could do. So it was really poignant to watch, and it makes you just even more intrigued by Serena.
I absolutely agree. That we see June escaping from Martha to Martha, yard to yard, and all it made me feel was pride and confidence in these hush networks, these whisper networks that have been created. These women are working together. Everyone agrees. Even now the wives have talked about how they don't agree with the society, and the handmaids, we know they don't. And it's going to have to be the women that, I mean, obviously they need the allies, but it's going to have to be the women. They're going to have to stand up together and fight this. I don't know how, Meg. How are they going to fight it?
They are, and I think that all we can do is take some clues and pointers. It has to be the women. It always has to be the women,
I agree. June and the baby get down to their ride out of town, and of course Bradley Whitford and Emily are there. June gives the baby to Emily along with her picture of her other daughter Hannah, and she puts on her game face and she's ready to fight.
Yeah, I mean, maybe in a way she's inspired by Serena, the way Serena was like, I've got to let this baby go and not be selfish. And I think that June, can you imagine how badly you'd want to get out of there?
Yeah.
But she's a mother and she has to put her children in front of herself, and she knows that she has a daughter still in Gilead and she has to go get Hannah. And I'm so excited to watch her next season, figure out how she's going to do this. And is she going to be sort of hiding secretively in Gilead? Is she going to go back to the Waterford home?
Yeah, I mean, she could claim kidnapping and they have to try again now. I mean, who knows? She's gotten out of it twice.
Yeah, I mean, she did scratch Don't Let the Bastards Get You Down in Latin on her wall, so that could be a problem. But I'm very fascinated to see. I'm very eager to see how this all goes. And as a mother, I can truly understand why she was like, I just can't leave until I have all my children. And that's understandable. And it's also good because now we get to have more seasons of Handmaid's Tale.
Let's rank Handmaid's Tale Season 2 on a scale of 0 to 10. 0 being you hated it, 10 being it's a perfect television show. What should we use as our ranking? My first thought was severed pinkies, but I think we need something more powerful than that. Empowering. How about Knives?
Nick against a wall with me? I mean, I feel like I can't handle more than one of those. How about how about knives that she stabbed Aunt Lydia with?
Yeah, I like that. So knives that stabbed Aunt Lydia. So just picture, we need somebody who can draw to like create these rankings each week. Yeah. And I picture Aunt Lydia like curled up at the bottom of the stairs with a knife in her back, and that's
so
like
yeah.
I give it a 10. I think this is a perfect TV show. 10 Aunt Lydias stabbed in the back.
I agree because I give it a 10 because I've been barely watching any like hour-long dramas lately. Just, you know, the way it is this summer and everything. And this show is so, well, in a lot of ways it's depressing and bleak, but I cannot wait to watch it. And sometimes shows like that, you're kind of like, oh, I don't know if I have it in me right now, but I always have it in me to watch Handmaid's Tale, and I'm always like literally on the edge of my seat, and I'm always just in awe of the acting and the writing and the cinematography, everything. It's perfect. I love it. 10 Aunt Lydia's curled up onto the stairs.
I had one inappropriate laugh during this episode because, and first of all, we call it the Notebook laugh because we went to see the Notebook together in the theater, and when the old couple is laying dead together at the end, like some man in the theater laughed really loudly.
It was like, huh? It was like one big.
And so my Notebook laugh watching the finale was, June said something about Nick and like sleeping with Nick and like being her boyfriend or something, and then Martha's like, I should have tried. Like, and I thought she meant, like, tried sleeping with Nick, but she wasn't. She, like, wanted to save Eden, so it was super inappropriate. I'm sorry.
Yeah, one-track mind. Like, they're only trying to save their lives, Kelly.
I mean, and I don't mean to reduce this down to sleeping with Nick. I'm sorry, but, you know, that moment, that was on my mind.
It's always on my mind. Real quick, I read this interesting article about how they were did you see how they were just about to release Handmaid's Tale themed wine and then they canceled it? What do you think about that?
Well, as I've seen the reaction on Twitter, everyone wants it more now, so maybe they'll change their mind. I don't know. I mean, I feel like it is a little bit off-putting. It's like, oh, I'm drinking off Glen. You know, it's like,
Yeah, it's probably in a little bit of poor taste. I mean, maybe they could, I think maybe what they need to do was call them by their actual real names, not Offglen and Offred, and maybe you could have like some colors on there that look like the cloak, but maybe have them dressed in their normal clothes or something. I don't know. It just, yeah.
We shouldn't be profiting off of the handmaids as the handmaids.
Yeah.
Like, let's see what Emily likes to drink after a lecture.
Janine made a joke about how much she misses tequila. It actually wasn't a joke. She was very honest about how much she misses. Like, that'd be perfect.
See, Janine and tequila, and it's like one-eyed tequila or something.
Kelly, that's inappropriate.
I'm sorry. Serena will never drink tea properly again because she can't stick her pinky out.
Oh, poor Serena.
Oh, sorry. Now who's making inappropriate
Yeah,
jokes?
that's not funny.
Okay. Well, we hope you've enjoyed this Fast Forward episode. Stay tuned for more Fast Forward episodes coming as we watch new horror content.
Bye, you guys.
See you in the horror section.